just the letting go, right? The feeling of letting go. That's, if in a nutshell, it's like you're holding on so tight to all the control you have over manipulating every aspect. You don't want to lose a dime to risk or to any of the things we just talked about. And it ties back into the estate planning conversation, because the fear that I have felt melt away just from having my family looked out for to the best of my ability. Like, there's still some things that I need to address, and you too, I guess, to restructure your will and trust.
Once you start like putting the puzzle together, and figuring out like it's just like when you make a to-do list, right? All the priorities go on the top, and then whatever is not so important go on the bottom. You outsource that, and then you're still keeping that, priority.
Yeah.
So for me, it's those two things, and then everything else can fall under that.
When I came out here and visited, of course I see your success, but what drew me here wasn't that. It was the faith in it. I was like, man, I'd like to be around this and the group of people that you've attracted to yourself.
Grew up, my parents were still married. We always went to church, had a lot. And then, the recession hit. My parents lost all their businesses. I went off to college. And, like you, I had to grow up really quick.
Yep.
I'm not coddled anymore. And, all this stuff. I'm in a different city. I'm, trying to figure things out as a 19-year-old. And, I believe I grew up a lot during college. And then getting drafted and being a professional made it even, tougher. And I really believe that all those experiences strengthened my faith, because I think for a lot of people, I started to see it in the sports world, where it was like, man, everyone's identity is wrapped up in their stats,
Yes.
like how good they are, what people think of them.
Yeah.
And even I'm like, man, I had a bad game. I feel like crap.
Yeah.
And the crappy thing about baseball is we play every day.
Yeah. Yes.
So if we have a bad game, we have a bad game, then we play again tomorrow. We have another bad game. And then you're just like, oh my gosh, dude, like I don't have a week to like
Yes.
get rid of it.
Yes.
And I just found myself getting wrapped up in that all the time. And I had to learn, like, dude, it's just a game.
Yeah.
Like, even if I get released and I don't play again, I'm going to be all right.
Yes. 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 I think you find so many people, in the professional world, whether it's football, baseball, whatever, business, where they determine who they are based on what they do.
Yep.
And their successes and their failures. And some people get a little too high, some people get way too low. Mm-hmm. And for me, I've tried my best, not to ride that roller coaster. Obviously when you're younger, it's a lot harder, because you're trying to earn that next contract. You're trying to make the first Pro Bowl. You're just trying to make the team for the first time. Like, I remember all of those emotions,
Yeah.
And I feel like, but once I do that, then they will know I'm good. And
Right.
Then they will respect me.
Like, who cares who they are?
And now I'm like, I'm 30 years old, and thank the Lord I've gotten it. So I'm like, I don't care at all.
Yeah. Right.
I like media people ask me a question, I'll be like, I'm just not even going to answer that. Like, I don't have to answer to them anymore.
Right.
Whereas my culture told me I had to answer to that.
100%.
The culture of the sports world told me I had to feel what they were asking me. And so a lot of people don't see what I am as rational. And
Right.
I almost see them as irrational,
Right.
because I'm like, I've found something that tells me who I am. Like, I'm the head and not the tail. I'm the victor and not the victim. I am called son. I am called beloved. I am called accepted. And if I remember I say it all the time. I was like, what voice are you listening to? Are you listening to the voice of what everyone else is trying to tell you who you are? Or are you reading your word and listening to that voice? Who does God say that you are? And it's in those lowest moments where I remind myself, or even the high moments, no. Like, I'm your child. Thank you for everything. And I even thank him during the storms. Thank you that I'm going through this. Thank you that I get to go through this.
Right.
Because I prayed for this. I prayed to be in this position, And so I continually, just for me, I just continually try and stay in that level place and not let this game do this.
Yeah. I remember it was interesting, because I feel like I've lived kind of two lives. Like, I lived my life as an athlete, and I don't feel like I ever truly mastered that, which is why, I never got to the big leagues and, got the mega contract, whatever. Like I was just like so hard on myself on the bad days, riding my high horse on the good days. And then, one day it ended, right? Yeah. And I remember as I started to have success in business and social media and stuff, I was like, I'm not going to play that game again. I'm not going to be like so high on myself when we crush it. I'm not going to be so hard on myself when we make a bad decision or a bad investment. Like that's just part of life, and it's helped me a lot now where I'm a lot more known today through something totally different that I would have never anticipated. And, we don't deal with the media like you guys do. I deal with, social media people, freaking commenters, people making videos about me, like, all that stuff. And I'm like, I just don't even look at it. I'm like, it's just, what's the point?
That's right.
It doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything for you. It's definitely not going to do anything for you.
Well, and it also can only hinder you from really speaking the things you want to speak about. Because, like if I was so concerned about, I guess, monetizing and making all these things, I wouldn't talk so much about faith and these things that I believe are the most important, the family and everything like I've kind of created with the wealthy way, making money and the things people wanted to hear. But in the end, it's just like, I don't want to talk about that all day. Like it gets boring. I'm sure it gets boring talking about football all day for you. Like, dude, been doing this so long. Like there's other parts to life beyond football, beyond making money.
Yeah, absolutely. Like to me, like, one thing I love about my wife is when we first met, she was like, I would love to date you, but you're a football player. I want nothing to do with that. And I was like, I'm going to marry you, like she didn't care about that stuff. Like she cared about my heart, she cared about, who I really am, and so I try and surround myself with people that remind me who I am, and I don't surround myself with people that are, infatuated with what I do, because that's going to end, as for everybody, whether it's early, middle, or late, I mean, Brady's still going, like
he just announced he's back yesterday.
I'm like, you ain't got nothing else to do. But no matter when it is, it's going to end. And you still have most people have 60, or 80 years still to go, and so are you going to just determine your life based on this short amount of time? Like, you have to really surround yourself with people that tell you who you are, remind you every day, like, no, you're a great dad, you're a great husband. Even on the hard days, coming home and, you throw 2 picks and you lose a game and you come home and your kids are like, Dad, let's play football. You're like, the last thing I want to do is play football, but I'm going to be a good dad right now.
Right.
And set in your mind. I think a lot of it has to do with setting your heart and setting your mind before those opportunities come, because if it just comes upon you, man, I don't want to do that right now.
Yeah.
But staying on topic, like surrounding yourself, for me, with people that remind you who you are, help you with that.
We just finished that in Bible study in James, don't be just like a talker of the faith.
Yeah.
Be a doer,
Right.
Faith without actions is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true, right? Like I hear people all the time, Christian or not, that talk about faith. And they're like, yeah, I got so much faith in God and all this stuff. And then all I see is fear.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, really? Because if you were living in faith, you wouldn't have all this fear.
Yeah, right.
Faith and fear are opposite.
Yep.
Fear is not trusting. Faith is fully trusting.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there were times when I was about to move out here and little things came up, and I remember you saying, I smell fear, boy. And it would take me back a notch. I'm like, man, you're right. I'm trying to talk myself out of this because it's terrifying to take that first step. And just to like put some numbers, because I know your audience is probably a numbers, like we all are, numbers motivated. So Ryan was trying to talk me basically into, hey, Blake, you should move out here and put your house in North Carolina on Airbnb, because you've been talking about it for 3 years and you haven't done anything.
Yeah, I'm like, bro.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, man. When I came out here and visited, of course I see your success, but what drew me here wasn't that. It was the faith. And I was like, man, I'd like to be around this and the group of people that you've attracted to yourself. So we did. We threw our house up on Airbnb. Leap of faith. I tried to talk myself out of it 20 times. You called me out for being scared. And now our place in North Carolina has rented on Airbnb for 7 months out. It's rented out through January now at like $10K a month on a $2,000 mortgage.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And
your that cash flow pays for your current house in Vegas plus profit.
yeah, plus profit.
You're living for free out here.
Living for free. And it's crazy to say because most people would probably look at this and be like, oh, you're crazy, man. That's kooky. It's just good business. But there were so many times when I was on the way out here where I was praying about it. Hey, just shut this thing down, God, if it's not what you want, like fearfully. And
please don't let me have to do this.
dude, so many little things happened. Like we listed our car because I didn't want to ship 2 cars. We had an older car and immediately, bing, Facebook, a pastor up the street that ran a church was like, hey, I want to buy this for my daughter. Boom. And everything was made easy. There was 4 or 5 incidences like that. And anyways, I guess my point in this whole spiel is that what you put out a lot of the time as, your entrepreneurial swagger and confidence in yourself, all that is valid, but what it ties back to that I wonder if your audience sees all the time, it's something that I've seen being buddies for so long, is that you just have a very deep trust in your faith, and it empowers you to just be really successful at anything you want to do without the fear.
I want to add to that too, for sure, because I know for me, like you said, Ryan was telling you to make the leap, right? To take the jump, take the risk. And I didn't have a Ryan when I made my leap. I had $3,000. Half of that went to moving everything, and the other half went to first month's rent when I moved to Vegas. But my faith allowed me to believe that no matter what, I was covered, right? And so if you're listening, and you're watching this, understand that you don't need the successful Ryan who some may hear you say that and think like that's your backing. Like there's it's not a real risk because you got Ryan to help you when you need it. Even, in a situation like mine where I didn't have that, and I moved with a torn patella tendon, so I didn't even have a job when I moved. I just knew that, okay, if I make this leap and it all makes sense, I'm in the media space. What's the best place in the country to go for media? It was LA, it was Atlanta at the time, and then it was Vegas. LA was too expensive. Atlanta, I didn't want to be around any more mosquitoes moving from Chicago.
I hear you.
And Vegas was that perfect middle spot. And so it was like, all right, let's take the leap. Let's believe that if this is meant and this is God willing, that he's going to work everything out. I mean, my wife drove across the country by herself to do it while I was having surgery. But all I knew at the moment was, we okay. We got this. And I mean, I was surrounded by people that was like, oh, this is a sign. You got hurt. This is a sign. You can't go. Yeah. This must mean. And, I just wanted to, I wanted to point that out too, because like you said, after you make the leap, then your faith builds and then you can make more leaps.
Yes.
When I took on this position, I had a bunch of people, even family members saying, what happens if Ryan quits social media tomorrow? What are you going to do?
Fear.
And it was like, you just can't move in that way. You won't achieve anything in moving in that type of mindset. But I just wanted to make that clear. Like, you don't need a Ryan telling you to.
But even when you have me telling you, it took me telling Blake 3 years to do something. Yeah. I'm like, I don't even know anymore, dude. Like,
right. But you know what? The difference was, it wasn't me. I didn't change. You didn't change your tune. It was the fact that I kind of got a little more serious about my walk over the last couple of years, and it built to a point where it wasn't a business decision. It was.
You had no business reason to move out here.
No, not at all.
Yeah, you already had your job. You're remote. You could live anywhere.
Yeah,
it was strictly you wanted to be around other believers and people, with faith doing things.
I came out to see you a couple times and realized, like, man, this is a very good environment to be in. And for me right now, this is a very good environment to be in. And
look, and now you're the co-host of the Wealthy Way podcast.
I know.
Look how far you've come.
I made it.
You've made it. JB, why don't you tell them your story of how you even started working for me? I don't think we've told that story on air.
No, I don't think so. So it's funny, like, when I left Chicago, I had a few bad experiences just as I left, right? So, like, there was a conflict at the church I was going to. Like I said, I was injured. You know, there was a bunch of stuff happening that season that I was like, all right, what's going on? Like, this is not what you thought and what you planned for, you know, at this age. And funny enough, and this is why I always tell people to listen to women because they're a lot smarter than we are. My wife didn't give me the option of attending church. She was like, you've grown up your whole life in it. You know better than to have this feeling towards the church now that you've had a bad experience. And so, you know, we actually visited Ryan's home church first. And then we found another one just up the street from that one that we really enjoyed. And it was through that community that stuff started to happen. And I found it in myself again to just dedicate myself to the serving part of ministry. And it was like, all right, whatever they ask, like I didn't care. If I had to move cones in the parking lot, I was going to do it. But I was like, I was blessed enough to where they can see talent and they can see potential. And I moved into a media space in the church. And so serving is what I found a lot of times the result of that and dedicating myself to it. I was being blessed over and over again. And it was even allowing me to bless others. And there was at one point of that season that I was like, now I just want to be surrounded around like-minded individuals, successful individuals, and Christian men. I was working for an armored truck company, and it was just toxic. It was like the men were working all day long because they didn't want to go home to their wives. Like they were, you know, everything about it was toxic. And I was like, I don't want to be around this because it's poisonous. And so a buddy of mine, Omar, just sent me a screenshot of one of Ryan's Instagram stories that's like, I'm looking for, you know, a editor.
There you go.
And just like that, you know, a relationship was built. My first conversation with Ryan, he goes, yeah, I'm just looking for an editor to do this podcast that I'm releasing. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, how do you know Omar? I was like, I know him from church. He's like, well, if he trusts you, then I trust you. And it was a quick conversation. He was like, be at my office this day, blah, blah, blah. And we had another conversation. But what I found most interesting that it wasn't even about editing. It wasn't about, you know, the podcast. The conversation was more about life and what my values were. And now, you know, obviously in hindsight, I can see why he does it because it's what he bases his decisions on. But yeah, it was, you know, that type of dedication, the risk of taking the move, you know, and then being open to, you know, new things and opening to following what you know you feel in your heart. It essentially led to, you know, the opportunity.
You didn't even mention the craziest part about that story.
What part?
The fast.
Yeah, that's a big part of that because we were on a Daniel fast for 10 days, and I had talked to you maybe right before it started initially, and then on day 10 we kind of closed the deal and was working on, you know, I was putting in my 2-week notice, and it was like when you truly believe and you commit to it. And honestly, it was like the first time I had like fasted legitly. Like I didn't find a way out of this. It was like in this season, I really need to do this. And so on day 10 is when everything kind of fell into place, you know. Man. It really started a journey for me, like, you know, even just, you know, education wise. It's a bunch of stuff I've learned in just that time period that there's no other way I would have access.
Dude, from editor to co-host of the Wealthy Way podcast.
Mama, I made it.
Crazy, man.
You guys made it, dude.
Well, and just the letting go, right? The feeling of letting go. That's, if in a nutshell, it's like you're holding on so tight to all the control you have over manipulating every aspect. You don't want to lose a dime to risk or to any of the things we just talked about. And it ties back into the estate planning conversation because the fear that I have felt melt away just from having my family looked out for to the best of my ability. Like there's still some things that I need to address, and you too, I guess, to restructure your will and trust. And but at the end of the day, like there's still a piece there.
You know, I think it all comes back to, as you were saying, like holding on to the money. You know, I think it all goes back to your belief. And, you know, we're talking about faith, but your belief in what you view money as, right? Because there's so many people that view money as, I gotta have it. If I lose it for good. I'm never getting it back. And, you know, this is very hard.
Yep.
And I value this money so much because for whatever reason, like it's idolatry. And for me, I really have never valued money that much. Like I told you, I live frugally. I was chilling. I've always thought I was rich when I was broke. Like I literally, I'm good, dude.
Like when you got that Veloster.
When I got the Hyundai Veloster in 2012.
Oh man, we were rolling in that thing.
Man, that was we don't talk about that.
Part of that though is the minor league life.
Yeah.
It conditioned you to be content with nothing.
Yeah, for those wondering, the story about a 2012 Hyundai Veloster, brand new, paid 20 G's for it. I was so proud of it because I'm like, dude, this was the best deal ever. I got a brand new car. Gets 40 mpg. It's the girliest, dumbest looking car ever. But you know what? This was a great deal. And then I ended up getting rid of it 6 months later because I'm like, this car sucks.
Yeah.
And took a loss on it. But nonetheless, I thought I was rolling in style and luxury in that Hyundai Veloster. And so nothing has changed. Like I drive the Porsche now and I'm like, I still feel cool like I did when I had the Veloster. Though I'm much cooler now. Yeah. So objectively.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of shared that with me too, because, with the whole social media content, whatever gets attention is going to be good for business. And in a nutshell, like you're also helping people a lot with, I've seen a lot of the success stories with Future Flipper. So either way, the end result is a positive thing. But when we talked about, because, I came out to visit you intermittently, and there was a time where like your success had skyrocketed, and I'm like, I wonder if Ryan's going to be the same guy. I'm about to go stay with Ryan now, and he went from couch flipping to being like a multi-millionaire.
You asked me about what gave me the wherewithal, what made you so interested in this, where you can climb to the top of your industry. I'll ask you the same question. Who were you at 11 years old when you were playing Little League? You're clearly you're a monster. You have all of these businesses. You've created success. You've convinced people like me to listen to you. But I'm saying that's an incredible, powerful thing that you've done.
I got you to the Future Flipper Mastermind, dude. You're here.
Yeah, you got me here. I got on an airplane for you.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy I'm here. But that takes a level of competence and knowledge and mastery. Were you always that guy? Does everyone out there watching this right now have the power that you have to do this, or were you born with something that we don't have?
Dude, that's a tough question. I think there's two things, man. I think everyone has natural God-given ability, right? For whatever it is, right? So it's like, not everyone can go play in the NBA, dude. No matter how hard you try, you're born like me and you're 5'10", Filipino kid. I wanted to play basketball, but just wasn't in the cards. Like my natural ability did not allow it, right? And I think that's kind of what led me to baseball, was that my abilities catered to baseball far more than any other sport. I'm not a distance runner. My body ain't built for that. I'm Pistorius, right? I'm not a basketball player, like I said. And honestly, I'm not even really like a football player because, man, my body would break. So baseball kind of like just fell into it because I'm like, man, with what I have, this is my best use of my talent.
Did you actually think you'd play baseball for the rest of your life?
I
No,
did.
not the rest of your life, but
I
your
did.
career.
Yeah, so, growing up as the 11-year-old, like you said, good player, not like crazy, not like I was the best player ever, but, I was one of the better players on my team, made all-stars and stuff, and then my talent started to develop pretty good. I actually peaked early because I've been this height since I was 14 years old. I was 5'10" at 14, and so I was like already pretty developed.
You drank a lot of coffee. It stunted your growth.
Dude, it is what it is.
Mom was right. It stunts your growth.
For those who don't know, man, I drink at least 5 shots a day of espresso. So nonetheless, I go into high school, I'm a freshman, pretty big, pretty developed, and I make the varsity team. I'm batting third, playing short. And at that point, I'm like, I'm pretty good. Like there's not many freshmen doing this. And I get a Division I scholarship. I get drafted, and I'm like, this is all going to plan. Like, I'm going to play in the bigs. And, eventually you meet people who are far better than you. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I used to be the big guy, as a high school kid. Then I get into college, and I'm not like the big guy anymore. I'm like a middle of the, like, size-wise, right? But I was still more skilled than them, right? So I got drafted. I led our conference in home runs. I was like second in stolen bases. So like I was making the most of my talent. But then I get into the pros, and that was when I was like, whoa, this is different. Like I'm literally the smallest guy on my team because now I'm playing with real men, dude. And not only that, but these guys are all big. They're all skilled. They throw the ball way harder than everyone else. They hit farther. Their arms are better. They're just so slick. Like everything about it. And this is what happens not only in sports and in business, but you have a choice. You're like, okay, this is the competition. Like I need to level up and I need to learn how they're doing what they're doing and in order to play at this level. And, you know, I did that and I kept getting better and better. But what I did find was eventually I felt like I maxed out my talent. Like that was it. I reached the best I could possibly be as a baseball player, and it wasn't enough to play in the big leagues against these other guys. Like their natural God-given talent was just so much better than mine.
It's hard to admit that when you've dedicated so much of your time.
And it just, but I'll say this because a lot of people never reach their peak because of dumb reasons, right? They party, they get into stupid things, they're not dedicated. And I never had to look at that and be like, dude, what if I would have taken it more? Like, I know I did everything in my power to be the most successful I could. And I know that I reached the peak of my abilities, and I'm happy knowing that. So I look at it now in business, right? So I go into business while I'm playing baseball and stuff. And I did not know I was an entrepreneur or an investor or even a leader, right? Somebody who's leading companies. I didn't know I was a social media guy. I didn't know any of these things about myself, but I put myself in these scenarios and, you know, it's just like baseball, right? You get thrown into the situation. You're like, okay, I've either got to step up to the competition or not be in this industry. Like if I can't hang. And so I chose to step up and eventually, you know, surpass a lot of people. And I just didn't know I had these talents. So I guess the long story short is, I think for one, I had certain God-given abilities that I've just been trying to maximize. And most people don't ever realize where they can maximize them at because they don't try enough things. Dude, look how many things I've tried in my life. I've tried flipping couches. I've tried playing baseball. I've tried running businesses, I've tried a lot of things.
Which I love.
To figure out that, okay, these are the things I'm good at.
Most of us don't try all those things.
No, most people never get to understand who they are because they don't try new things. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is, I do believe that anyone can be very successful in something, but you have to try and figure out like, what is it that I'm really good at? Like you at 12 years old, you were like, dude, I want to be on camera. I want to, you know, be a journalist. I want to do all these things. Like you knew from an early age and you tried it, you went for it, and you just kept ascending up the ladder.
Hey, you know what I always think about with that? I always think like, am I just good at this? Or is it because I cared about it so much and I became good at it?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no, you have natural ability towards it too.
Probably.
You do. Everyone has natural ability in something.
Well, it's sort of like he asked Derek Jeter, how do you hit home runs? And he's like, I don't know, I swing the bat.
Yeah, you're like, how do you come up with these questions? You're like, I don't know,
Right.
That's natural.
That's natural ability.
Yeah. And so.
But you have this natural ability. Were you a talker when you were a kid?
No. Super introverted.
Huh.
I never wanted to be the team captain. I never wanted to be a leader. I was always in baseball. Go talk to any of my teammates. I was just like the guy who would hang out in my locker, play on my phone, just do me. Like nice guy, not like, but I'm definitely not going out there and trying to talk to everybody and be like the rah guy. Even at my event, you'll see it, dude. When I go to the event, I'm like, I'm just talking to people. I'm not ever going to be the hype man. And when you see me outside of the event, I'll just kind of just be chilling, you know, on my own. And it just so happens it's my event, so everyone's always talking to me.
Yeah.
But if it was not my event and no one knew who I was, I would just be chilling on my own.
You consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm an introvert for sure. Introvert for sure.
So when you and your wife go out to a party and you're not Ryan Pineda, the guy who's throwing the mastermind, and you're not the guy who's throwing the welcome party or having a seminar,
I just kind of chill in the background. I don't really.
Is your wife an extrovert?
No, we're both introverts.
You're both introverts.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we're both very introverted, and we both just kind of like our own privacy together. Also, too,
I love that.
We're pretty introverted even at home. Like, you know, we get home, we chill, we're sitting together, but it's not like we're both just like, okay, tell me about your day.
Yeah, you were telling me you and your wife haven't actually spoken to each other in a month and a half.
We're still married.
Yeah, exactly. Of course.
Yeah, you'll see her tonight, at the party, but you'll see us both. Like, we're both just like, people talk to us, and I'm friendly. Like, I'll happily talk to people and give them value, but I don't know like how to small talk.
Yeah, I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
I have tons of social anxiety. And no one believes that because I'm on camera and all that, but people
So
don't
do you
realize,
think you're introverted?
Oh, I'm 1000% an introvert, except I'm married an extrovert.
Okay.
So when we go out, she can be the life of the party and it allows me to hang back. That's why I was surprised that your wife is also an introvert.
Yeah.
Because I'm a complete homebody. Like, I want to come home. I just want privacy. She wants to go out and do stuff.
My wife is a super homebody, way more than me. Like, for me, I like being home and doing that, but I'm also like, hey, I think we should probably do this. And she's like, do we have to? And
I love her.
Yeah. I'm like, and then me being an introvert, I'm like,
okay,
no,
fine.
like we
I guess
don't.
we don't.
Yeah, we could. I don't know. So yeah.
It's funny because you mentioned that I have tons of social anxiety. When I'm at a party, making small talk to me is deadly. It's torture.
Yeah.
And no one can believe that. My own producers who I've worked with for years and years are like, no way.
Yeah.
We're calling BS. You must go out. I go, no. I said, it's different because when I'm looking into the camera like this,
You're in your element.
I'm in my element. That lens isn't judging me. I'm not watching somebody at home roll their eyes at me.
The lens can't talk back.
The lens can't talk back.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm at a party and I tell a bad joke, I'm going to get a live reaction that it was a bad joke.
You're like, I'm leaving.
I stink.
Well, to go back to the thing of, is it learned or, are you born with it? Obviously you can hone your skills and continue to get better and better, but I just think it comes down to picking the industry at which you can use your skills the best. I'm a huge believer, like, we give all of our employees personality test because...
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm. Because I've realized that certain people fail at certain positions because of their natural personality, right? Like, think about this. If you're an extrovert, sales guy who's, like, if I'm hiring a salesperson, right? I don't want an introvert who's afraid to talk to people. I want an extrovert who's outgoing, willing to put themselves out there and just, like, they don't care if they get rejected, because salespeople get rejected all day, right? Introvert takes it to heart. They're like, I don't know if I can. They internalize it. They do these things. So I have to know what this person's natural ability is if I want to hire them. And it doesn't mean that an introvert can't succeed at sales, right? I've succeeded at sales. It just means that that's not their natural state at which they like to be.
What does a personality test look like?
I'm going to give you one after this, dude.
I love it.
There are multiple personality tests. Like, Tony Robbins has, like, probably the most famous one, the DISC test. And, people take that.
What is that?
It's just a test you could take online.
It's just an online, what is it? It's just questions
Yep.
about your personality.
Yeah, it's just questions. This other one is called Predictive Index. That's what we make everyone take. We pay a lot of money to get the software and access. And all of our employees, our students, we put them all through the test. Not for employees so we can, know if we want to hire them or not, but for our students so that they can understand themselves. Because, like, I tell them all the time, I'm like, hey, they're like, Ryan, who should be my first hire? I'm like, my first hire is going to be different than yours. Because if you're really good at being a salesperson and extroverted, then you need somebody on the back end who can handle all of that stuff, who's introverted and data-driven and very detail-oriented. Salespeople are not detail-oriented. They're just like, go with the flow, whatever happens, like, we're going to adjust and figure out how to make a deal. And in order to have a successful business, you have to have both. You can't have a bunch of salespeople running loose with no detail or anything.
And I bet you find that a lot of people you give the test to actually learn something about themselves, because we don't always know we can't judge ourselves.
Dude, a ton. I'm going to give it to you after this, and you're going to learn a lot. And it's just, for my students, I give it to them so that they know, and they know where they fit in their own company. Not everyone needs to be the CEO. Okay? If you start a company, it does not mean that you're fit to be the CEO. It doesn't mean that you need to be the salesperson. Like, I want people to do what they do naturally well.
But we all want to see ourselves as the CEO.
They do, but look,
I agree. No, I agree. I'm agreeing with you 100%. I'm
Yeah.
saying that's why we need these tests.
No, and that's why I'm saying
we can't fairly assess ourselves.
No, we can't. You have to be objective. And what's funny is with these tests, they literally take like 5-10 minutes. and they're spot on. You're going to see it. You're going to be like, wow. Because they just ask you a question, like just basic questions. It's like, pick the words that you think describe you. And so you pick these words, just one word. And then it's like, okay, pick the words that you think others see you as. And then it's like, boom, 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 here's the other word. And then it spits you out the personality test. And you're like, wow, that's spot on. It's crazy how good the softwares are. But you think about it, right? Like Facebook and all these guys, they know us. They feed us ads that fit our. This is not anything new. AI can tell us so much more about ourselves than we know because it's objective. It's not. I like to see myself as a superhero, but I'm really not.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
That's fascinating.
It's super fascinating. And that's why I say, like, everyone has natural ability in something. And you have to try a bunch of stuff out to figure out what you're good at. And for you, you tried journalism. It just so happened you went 1 of 1, dude. You did it, and it worked. For me, I tried baseball. And to be quite frank, I think like I had natural talent and athleticism to do it, but it was not the best use of my talent. You know, like I figured out, like you said, like just people figure it out and find out. That's how I feel I was with baseball.
But at the time, you probably felt like a failure.
I did, yeah.
Because you didn't have the perspective of now of saying,
100%.
oh, I'm going to be successful at this. You were just like, I failed at the one thing that I've tried to do. I'm 0 for 1.
Exactly. And so I was 0 for 1 at 24 years old, having been released by the Oakland A's. Like, what do I do with my life?
Not to trigger you and bring up all this. You're like, thanks, Jeff. Okay, let's talk about how I was let go by the Oakland A's again.
Well, you know, I think it's good for people to hear because a lot of people listening are at that point where they're like, I failed at whatever it is, right?
Look, they say what every path to success goes through the sewer.
Yeah. And so even though I had more success at this endeavor than 99.9% of people, to me, I was a failure. And I said, what am I going to do with my life, right? So I try a bunch of different things. And through that trial, I realized I was a lot better at other things than baseball. You know, I was very good at strategy and innovating new products. And I did not know I was such like a visionary, like thinking about how the world and all these things were going to play out. And yet that's what a lot of people know me for now. They're like, dude, this guy's like always ahead of the game on what he's doing. How does he do that?
Right. Baseball now is an afterthought when we think about you.
Half the people don't even know I played. Like I had the event here, like there was like 70 people here. And they're like, dude, you played baseball? Because, you know, I got the jerseys up there. I'm like, yeah, dude, it was, you know, just 27 years of my life. I've only been doing this for 5 years.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. You said you were thinking about other side businesses and things too. I mean, obviously, you're an entrepreneur at heart. How do you balance everything else? Like you mentioned church. I talk a lot about faith on this podcast. You mentioned family. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you make time for all of it?
Yeah. So I think, you know, and actually I've been thinking about this, you know, very often too. It's, you know, setting up your priorities, you know, like regardless of whatever you do during the day, during the week, the year,
right?
Like what are your priorities? And the priorities are God, you know, and family. Mm-hmm. Like everything else can fall down.
Yeah.
You know, but if those things fall before that,
yeah,
then, you know, I know that there's
way bigger problems.
Yeah, way more, you know? So I think one of the things that actually my dad taught me when I was a kid was put God first, no matter what.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that, you know, if I, and this is what I've been doing, actually my first business, my construction business, the first day that I thought about making a business, I put myself on my knees and I prayed to God and I said, you know what, here I come, you know, and I put everything in your hands and I want to do it just, as what you want me to do, you know.
Right.
And I think that's where everything starts, you know, setting up your priorities. So my priority is, one, I know that if I have faith and if I believe in God, he's always going to be with me no matter what.
Yep.
And then from there is what falls behind that is our family, right? So every single day, like for example, me, I learned how to work only 7 hours per day.
Yeah.
Versus 12 or 18 hours, you
right.
know? And that was something that I didn't do for two full years. And actually, when I had my construction business, it was 6 years.
You're just grinding for
Yeah, I was like
8 years.
Yeah, 8 years, and then I have a 6-year-old, and a 10-year-old. I mean, your kids are not going to be babies all the time,
Right.
And that is, I know a lot of people talk about sacrificing, they got to go through the sacrifice part, so they can also gain, right, and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, I feel like when it comes to family, it's like I'm not going to sacrifice my family. I'm going to sacrifice myself.
Yeah.
And how do I do that is if I need to work from 8 a.m. to, let's say, 4 p.m. and dedicate, so those 5 hours to my children, great. And how am I going to sacrifice, myself is working overnight,
Yeah.
So, and that's,
You're going to work through dinner time
I'm not.
and all that. Yeah.
I'm not. And I learned it, maybe a little bit late, right? But now I feel like, what, that's my priority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I'm
was,
not going to, yeah.
I don't know. Were you at my presentation for Tim?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like the whole premise of, what I was speaking about at that event with the wealthy way and everything else was like, man, you guys have got to learn how to prioritize your time.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned it, like, all those years in construction and even the first, couple of years of flipping, like you didn't make that much. You're making far more now, balancing it out and like working less.
Yes.
And that was the revelation I had too, that like I just keep like trying to tell people, I'm like, look, I literally work less now than I did, when I was making less, right? So like what is actually happening? Why am I somehow making more while working less?
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I think is unique to me because I've seen it happen for people like you and other people as well, where it's like once you start really figuring out how to use your time the most efficient way and you start getting your priorities correct where, you're pursuing God first and you're pursuing your family, you're pursuing your health, you're pursuing, self-development. And yeah, work is a part of that.
Right.
But, it's like people make work like the number one end all be all, their career success, their success on social media, their success on, how many house flips they can do. And it is just like the whole point of my presentation was you will do better once you stop making that a priority and like your identity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Once you start like putting the puzzle together, and figuring out like it's just like when you make a to-do list.
Yeah.
Right? All the priorities go on the top and then whatever is not so important go on the bottom. You outsource that and then you still keeping that, priority.
Yeah.
So for me, it's those two things. And then everything else can fall under that.
Yeah. You brought up your conference, the Altar Conference, was for fathers.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. So we'll have it, I think it's April 8th and 9th at the Thomas & Mack here in Las Vegas. And we have thousands of tickets sold already. It's going to be awesome. We did one in Fresno. It wasn't just men that time. It was for everybody. And man, we saw marriages reunited. We saw children come back home. We saw bodies healed. It was blowing, literally things that you can't argue, but it's just blowing your mind kind of thing. God was moving in that place. And he's going to, if he did it before, he'll do it again, know? And so we're coming to Vegas and it's a men's conference. I think coming out of COVID, there's a place of complacency that we need to step out of. It's comfortable to do church at home. It's comfortable just to watch it on the screen by yourself. And are you really paying attention? Are you really into it? Are you doing community? You
need community.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't do it alone. And that's one thing I learned through COVID is I watched some really close friends of mine and things like that, and where they got alone. Now their marriage is falling apart. They didn't want anybody around them. They're stopping talking to certain people that want to encourage them and love on them. And it's actually really sad, and I believe that God is calling men to step into everything that he's called them to. And I believe that time is now. And, so people, they literally just sent it to me this morning. It's really cool. We got people coming from all over the world. Like they gave me the heat map, of where people are buying tickets. And not only is all of America, different parts of the country. It's not like just one section in Las Vegas. Like it's everywhere. There's people in Hawaii. There's people overseas. Like, and you just see this whole big old map of people that are coming to Vegas because they know something's happening. People come from Costa Rica, Canada. They're coming because they know something's happening. And it's going to be powerful. So I mean, there's still time. There's still tickets available for men that want to come, and for dads, and for brothers, and I've had a whole bunch of moms say, "Can I buy tickets?" And I was like, "Yeah, just buy 10 of them, give them to your family, bring them, because I know something's about to happen, because something is already happening in Las Vegas. I've seen it at our church, at Church LV. With our men's group, we have a 6:30 men's prayer every Sunday. Every Sunday morning, all the men, we get together and we pray for our church, our leaders, our families, our wives, our kids, and for our jobs, for everything. And I've seen the power of God hit these men that I'm like, oh, it's about to happen for the city, and not just the city, but everyone around.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I can tell you, I started doing Bible study, man, what year was it? It's probably around 2015, 2016, weekly. And, for the last 6 years, that's what we've done. And now we do it at my office here with a lot of my employees and stuff. And it's really cool being able to do that. We just do it right after work on Wednesdays. And it's interesting because the aspect of community is so important, because I see all these guys who struggle, even if they're Christians or, they're not Christian. They're like, man, dude, I need to go see a therapist. I need to go see whatever. Like, I need to join a mastermind. I'm like, dude, it's because you don't have community. Yeah. That's the key. And I've never felt the need to go see a therapist, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I personally have never felt the need to go join these other business masterminds that I see all the time, where the guys are like, yeah, we're going to go vacation stuff because we need friends, and, we need to talk about the issues we're having. And I'm like, yeah, if you just had a weekly community that was Christ focused, for me, that's what's solved a lot of my issues.
That's right.
And kept me grounded.
Absolutely. There's a peace that surpasses all understanding, the Bible says. And for me, I've found that, especially in what I do. If anyone, there's no denying that in my 9 years with the Raiders, there's been a lot of turmoil, to say the least. But for some reason, I've been able to remain constant, and for some reason, I'm still there, and for some reason, I still get to lead this team, and to me, it's not for some reason,
Right.
I've found something that has grounded me, that has given me hope when there was no hope, that has given me, something to hold on to when everything around me was pointing at, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And for me, for men, so many men just want to grind through it themselves, or they don't want to open up, or it's not manly to tell someone else that, hey, I struggle with this.
Right.
And at the Crossing Church, you saw I had the people stand up and come forward.
Yeah.
For certain reasons.
In 10 years of being there, I've never seen an altar call like that.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that, because it was on my heart to do it.
Yeah.
And, God moved in that place, and you saw it. The altars filled up. The aisles were filled up. There wasn't room.
No, it was crazy.
And I told him, I said, I want you to look around, and I want you to see that you were not the only one feeling this way today. And I remember saying that, look around, you're not alone. And if we would just open up our hearts to community, like Christ-centered community, come back to church, stop watching it on TV.
Right.
Stop watching it on YouTube and go there and get loved on by somebody.
Right.
Go there and serve the pastor's vision. The one thing I did when we came to Las Vegas is we went to Church LV, and because my grandmother was like, "You're going to Church LV, you got to go there." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And
why did she pick?
So the Pastor Benny, his sister is married to my cousin.
Okay.
I didn't know this.
Okay.
So that's why my grandma was like, "You got to go. He's a great man," and he is a great man. But when I showed up, I told him, I was like, "I just want to serve your vision. If it's setting up chairs, let me set up chairs. If it's just saying hi to people, I'll say hi to people. Whatever your vision is for your church, I want to help that." And when we do that, whether you agree with everything or not, just go serve your pastor's vision and just see what happens. And you begin to do that, and you begin to have community, you begin to have friends, and people encouraging you, man, keep it up, man, I believe in you, all these kind of things. And honestly, it's those little encouraging words that you'd get sometimes that take you to the next level.
Yeah. No, 100%. I love that. And it's funny, man. You know, I mentioned I've been at the Crossing for 10 years. And I mean, when I joined, I was a nobody, you know, just some broke minor league baseball player. But, you know, throughout the time, I served in so many different ways. Like, you know, my wife and I, before we had kids, we just got married. We were like, we want to go serve in the kids ministry. And so we literally taught Sunday school for like almost 3 years.
Wow.
And I had the 5th grade boys. She had the 5th grade girls. Wow. And it was a lot of fun. You know, we went on those retreats with them and like, it was crazy. And then as my career evolved and my skills started changing, I started leading other things, you know, then it was, you know, different kind of men's groups. Then it was like helping some married couples. And then it was, you know, what I do now, which is kind of just more independent. But, you know, we're going to go build homes in Mexico in 2 months. Like, you know, I just really enjoy doing those things. And I mean, when you become a believer, like the Spirit guides you to do those, like you desire to do those things. Yeah. And it's interesting because as I've grown in my career, like my desires haven't really changed for what it is I want to do. I'm like, dude, I still want to go serve. I still want to spend time with my family. As all this other side of my life becomes more complex with more businesses and social media and stuff, I'm like, yeah, but whatever. Like, that's not the priority.
Yeah, no, that's right. And the biggest thing is, you know, when you follow Christ, he has to be the priority. Like, if he's not the priority, you're going to feel like something's missing. You're going to feel like, oh, I can't handle this situation, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. And as long as we keep him the priority of our life, when I wake up in the morning, as soon as my eyes open, man, I'm praying. Yeah. Like, Lord, give me strategy today. Give me the words to say. What is it you want to say? Put the right people in my way that I can show them your love, that I can show them your grace, your peace. You know, and he is constantly my priority. Yeah. You know, I'm not just trying to check boxes like, okay, I woke up, I prayed, you know, I woke up.
You're not a Pharisee?
I'm not doing that. You know, I just have this relationship with God that, for me, I've found that I'm just so desperate for him. You know, like I don't want to do anything outside of his will. So I'm just saying, Lord, what is it today? And once you have that intimate relationship where it's so near, it's so close, when you wake up and you don't do those things, you're going to be like, dude, I'm missing out.
Yep.
You know, man, I'm missing something. Like, and you're going to know what it is, but it's really giving him your whole heart. Just like, and I tell people all the time, like, if you haven't done it yet, man, just give him a chance. Like, give him your whole heart and just see what happens.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I also think it makes life simple. You're like, dude, just pursue this, pursue Jesus, and everything else will fall into place. Like,
literally it does.
Yeah. And I've said that before, because in the business world, they're like, okay, what's your 5-year plan? I'm like, bro, I don't even know what I'm doing next week.
Yeah, right.
You know, like,
right.
All of a sudden we're on a podcast a week later, right? Like, I have no idea what's going to happen next week. Like, whatever God puts in my path, that's what we're going to do.
That's exactly right.
And it's hard for people to fathom because they're like, I want to know every step of the way. Yeah. And I'm like, if you knew every step, there'd be no faith required.
That's right.
And so it's just,
that's right.
I think people just have to learn to become uncomfortable, you know, putting their life in someone else's hands.
That's right. And for controlled kind of people like myself, it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm just like, I've always just been like, I'll just work for it, you know. Like, I'll just grind for it, you know.
This is what I want. I'm going to do whatever it takes.
I'll do whatever it takes. And the Lord is saying, like, I'll do it with you, and it won't be that hard. You know? Like, you don't have to, you know, spend all that doing this and that and that. Like, just do what I tell you to do. So like, literally.
That's
like,
way easier.
Oh, no doubt. like literally on the way home, I was flying home last night, and I knew that today was going to be super busy. And I was praying, like, Lord, help me. You know, I got this to do, this to do, this to do. Just give me the strength to do it, and do it all with excellence, you know, and this. And I'm praying, and I just had a thought. He's like, why don't you work out when you get home? You know, this is after like a week of Disney and like you know, all this. And I was like, I really don't want to do that, you know. But I just felt like, I can get my workout in then. And so we landed. I unpacked the bags. I went downstairs, got my workout in, and then I was like, this like weird kind of peace, like, tomorrow doesn't seem so stressful now.
I don't have to do that. I got it done.
Like, I'm done. You know what I mean? And so if you just like, and that's how I live my life. I just communicate, like, Lord, help me. Yeah. Because I can't, if Ryan and Derek try and do it on their own, we're going to screw it up.
Yeah, 100%.
We're going to choose the wrong way. We're going to go down a path that's just beating our head up against the wall. But
100%.
when we allow him into every area, so much peace. There's just so much joy, you know, and we're not perfect at it, but
Right.
but when we do it that way, you find out like, yeah, I should probably do that way all the time.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And side note, as far as working out goes, dude, I'm like, this guy has like the biggest pipes in the league for a quarterback, dude. Like all these other QBs, they're, you know, they're all like nimble and like, you know, whatever,
Yes.
Brady's and Rodgers. I'm like,
Yep.
why is Carr so jacked? What's the
Yes.
point?
I try and tell people, I tell like young quarterbacks, like, you love working out. And I was like, well, one, the dudes hitting me are massive. You know, I don't really want them to feel that bad, you know?
Yeah.
And two, I was like, you can be flexible and jacked at the same time. You can do all the stretching stuff and work out still. So
Yeah.
that's what our quarterback or our OC, Greg Olson, the last few years was always like, I'd be in there, we'd be benching or doing pull-ups, and rowing, and he would just walk in and shake his head.
He's like, why?
And then I'd show him like, look, I'm still flexible. Like he's like, all right, as long as you're flexible, I won't stop this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I always thought that was funny, dude.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, dude. So as we wrap up, where can people buy tickets to the Altar Conference?
Yeah, they can go to alterconference.com. It's really on Instagram, the Altar Conference.
It has "the" in the word, the Altar Conference.
You know what? Let's make this unprofessional and let's find out the real answer. I'm gonna pull out my phone and pull it up right now. But I'm always posting stuff about it and all that good stuff. So it is the Altar Conference.
Yep.
And so if they want to go to the Altar Conference, there's a link, as you can see right at the bottom.
Okay. And Altar is spelled ALTAR.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the Altar Conference on IG, go to .com. We
Yep.
will also link to it in the description below on this podcast.
Appreciate that.
So guys, go get your tickets. I'm going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Lives will be changed. And whether you're Christian or not,
Yeah.
your life will be changed.
Yeah.
Just show up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always just the challenge. Just show up and
See what happens.
see what happens.
Yep. You know, whenever I get this question, a lot of it is not like a diss or anything, but I get these DMs. They're like, Ryan, I mean, you got nice cars. Well, I only have a car right now, but my wife has a nice car. And, you know, you got a nice house. You're building that mountain that's going to be millions and millions of dollars. Like, at what point are you crossing the line between how much is too much? And there's a lot of things that I look at because I used to be very judgmental as well. You know, I would see people and I'm like, man, you could have gave that money to the poor. You could have done so much else with that money and you spent it on, you know, the stuff that you don't need. You know, at the end of the day, nobody needs to live on a mountain and build the house that I'm building. So, really, here's the things that I think about as I've gotten older and made more money. Number one, okay, as a Christian, are you still tithing and giving? Okay. If you are spending all this money and you're not tithing and you're not giving, then there's an issue. Okay. This has no relevance on how much you make because tithing is just simply a percentage of your income. Doesn't matter what you make. And so whether you're making $40,000 a year or whether you're making $4 million a year, the percentage is the same. And so it's like, are you tithing or not? Like that's what it comes down to. And if you're not, then you've got an issue. That's what I fully believe. And there are Christians who say, well, man, like tithing it's in the Old Testament. You don't need to do that anymore. It's like, Jesus definitely did not say that you don't need to just stop giving. You know, you're meant to be selfless. You're meant to serve others. You're meant to give. And there's a reason that money is talked about more often than any other subject in the Bible, because God knew that money was what was going to have the biggest hold on people. And so no matter what your situation is, if you're not giving and tithing, then you've got an issue. And if you're not a Christian, okay, obviously you don't believe in tithing, but I do believe you should be giving. You should be donating. You should be doing all those things. And if you're not, then yeah, you're probably selfishly spending your money. So that's one thing to look at. And, you know, for me anyways, I'm not going to talk about how much I give, but, you know, I know that I'm giving a good amount. So I'll just leave it at that. But, you know, the second thing you got to look at is, do you find yourself neglecting your family or your faith in the pursuit of making more money or working more? And this is one that I do have to check myself on. You know, I have to be very cautious of, because as an entrepreneur, I could work nonstop. I really could. Like, I love working. I love making videos. I love building businesses. I love marketing. I love, all those things. But if I go down this rabbit hole of just only working because I know that, hey, more work makes more money, and then I neglect my faith or my family, there's a big problem. And I see it happen all the time with guys in my Bible study. I see it happen with people at church. They just stop going. Oh, well, I got an appointment I got to, go to. There's a, oh, well, it's like, well, yeah, that just shows it's not a priority for you. Like, you're literally choosing not to attend, fellowship or whatever, in the pursuit of money. Like, it's a very obvious example. And I'm not saying that, like, you should never make a mistake or never, if the situation calls for it, go to work. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm not just being hardcore and expecting everyone to be perfect. My point is, if it's just a continual habit of constantly pursuing money over family and God, then yeah, you've got a problem. And for me, that's why I have to, really discipline myself and say, I'm only working these hours. I've got a rule that, hey, I'm not working past 5 o'clock. I'm only working weekdays. Whatever I can get done in that amount of time, that's what I'm getting done, because I want to spend the weekends with my family. So, what are you actually, like, if you were to look at your time, take a step back, a big picture view, and see, like, how are you working? Like, or not how are you working, but what does your day look like? How many hours are spent with work? How many hours are spent with God? How many hours are spent with your family? And you're going to know a lot about yourself just by having a quick self check-in. So, third thing I look at is, how far below your means are you living? Okay. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact statistic, but like half of people are living paycheck to paycheck or are in debt. They have a negative net worth. So obviously you are living, above your means at that point. The goal is to live below your means so that you can start saving money and building wealth. I think everyone listening to this podcast knows that that's what you want to do. I mean, it's probably why you follow me. And once you get past that level, you got to really look at, like, how far below your means are you living? For example, it's a big difference if I go buy a Tesla versus somebody making $50K a year. Like, for me, I can buy a Tesla and I'm still living pretty low, below my means. For somebody else, it's like they should not be buying that car. They can't afford it, and it's going to put them in a tough spot where now they have to choose whether they're going to give money or have to go, make all this money to support it. And that's actually what happens is when you start living way above your means, it forces you to make the decisions that I just talked about with, hey, you know what? I got to go work. It's just, I got to pay the bills, right? So you choose to work because now you have all these debt obligations. Same thing with giving. It's like, well, I would give if I could, but I literally cannot. I just have to pay every single bill this month with what I made. And I just want to once again say that's false. That is completely false, and you're making excuses. At the end of the day, we can all live at an even lower standard. Nobody's making you live in the house that you have. Nobody makes you drive the car you drive. Nobody makes you eat out at the places you eat out or the Starbucks or, the lifestyle that you live. Okay? We all choose to live at a certain level of lifestyle, and, that's a choice. And typically for most people, they live a level that's right at what they make. That's just the statistics. The more you increase your income, the more your lifestyle increases with it, and it's linear. Like, it just keeps going together. Whereas we know people who build wealth, they live far below. That's how they save. So I think everyone needs to think about that, like just living below your means, having that margin in your life. And, when I look at my lifestyle, I live a very good life that, I eat out at places I want to eat. I drive the car I want to drive. I live in the house I want to live in. But it's still well below my means. I mean, I probably live on 10% of my monthly income. And so I know that that's very rare, obviously, but to live on 10% of your income, even if you have nice things, it just says a lot about, I guess, your income, number one, but also two, I could live a way more extravagant life if I wanted to. I could have multiple Ferraris, I could have bigger houses, I could have all this stuff, but I'm comfortable with where I'm at. And, I'll tell you too, it's money doesn't like change your happiness that much. I've been poor, I've been rich, and honestly, I've kind of felt the same both ways. I had joy when I was poor. I have joy now when I'm rich. I have more responsibilities now with businesses and other things. So like, the responsibility grows with wealth as well. And I got more people I'm taking care of at this point, as far as family, employees, and the families of my employees. So, for me, I have to be very responsible with my money. I want to have safety, nest eggs and stuff so that we can withstand storms, because if something bad happens, it's not just to me. It's to a lot of people that are depending on me. So I always take that into account. But the next thing that I think about too is, with the age of social media, does having a, really nice life actually help the world? I don't know the correct answer to that, but just some things I think about are like my mountain. I think it's inspired a lot of people. I think people are really like drawn to it, and it's brought more people to subscribe and follow, and now potentially listening to this message, which I think can definitely help the kingdom and change some lives. So who's to say if I don't buy that they never hear this message or anything else that may drastically change their life. So I think when you're in the age of social media and as a quote unquote influencer, these things that attract people in have the ability to really change their life because they hear something else. But, I also plan when we build that house to hold some crazy events, retreats and other things that I think can do a lot of good in the world. I look at, there's a guy, his name's Frank Martin here in town. He's he's probably in his 70s, and started a huge company called Martin Harris out here in Vegas. And I know they went nationwide. I don't even know what he's worth, but a lot of money. And now he's retired. He sold the company, but now he does a lot of stuff for, the church and retreats and other things. And he's got this beautiful cabin on like 15 acres out in Bryan Head that he holds this men's retreat. 200 people attend it every year. It's like the craziest event. And I remember attending it. I actually got to speak at it. And I'm just like, man, like God was telling me that this is what it's all about. Like, this is how you use wealth. You use your wealth to impact the world in a crazy way, And I just saw what he did with his property, and it really opened my eyes to what's possible when you open up opportunities for other people. So, I don't think all materials are bad. I don't think having a big house is bad. I think as long as you do the other things you talked about with like giving, not working too much and spending time in the faith and your family, and you're living way below your means, if you're still able to maintain all that and, do these things and be able to bless other people with those nice things, like to me, it feels fine. Also too, though, you got to think about this, and this is like the fifth tip I would say. How attached to you are your stuff? Are you super attached to it? Like, do you have this sentimental thing where you're like, I will never sell this. Like, I just love it so much. For me, I am not. I'm literally not attached to anything. And anybody will tell you that. I've flipped my personal house many times. I have sold many things. I've given away just tons of stuff that had a lot of value. I just am not attached to things. Like, I just don't care. And it's kind of funny because, I get people on this podcast who are like, man, you need to get a supercar. It's good marketing and all this. And I'm like looking through and I'm like, I don't even really want one. I get that it could bring exposure and potentially have a good return on investment because it brings business in, but I just don't even want one. In fact, if I had to sell my Tesla tomorrow because something went down or whatever, I'd sell it tomorrow and drive a Prius. Like, I really don't care. And it doesn't mean I'm going to go drive a Prius because I don't have to, but I would if I had to. I just don't care. I would sell my house today if I had to. I've made that decision before multiple times as I've built up over the years. I've had to convince my wife to sell our house because it was the right decision. And I didn't know where we were going to live. I didn't have another house planned out. We actually had to rent, but I knew that in order for us to get to the next stage of life and in my career, I had to sell it. And it's exactly what I did. So I'm not attached to anything. I can say that with certainty. Now, there's, even if you follow all those things, I mean, there's still a lot of Christians who will say, well, you shouldn't buy any worldly things, just, it doesn't matter. I don't care how much money you have. You should be donating it all. You should give it all away. And, I think a pastor I really respect, his name is Francis Chan. He kind of did that. He wrote a book called Crazy Love and other books that have definitely made him millions of dollars. And he's just been giving it all away. And he actually chose to give it all away and live very poor. He actually moved to China to be away from all the fame and everything that he had built, all the worldly success. And a lot of people just, they praised him for that and they respect him. And I respect him. Great guy. I hope one day I get to meet him. That'd be awesome. But I also know that God has a different purpose for everyone, especially with the skills that he's given people in their lives. So, when I think about missionaries, missionaries just have this calling. They just feel it and they want to go on missions, change the world, help these people in need. And I love missionaries. We support a couple of them here in Vegas. I actually put it, you guys should check out this YouTube I did. It's really amazing. But one of our houses that we bought as a rental, we put some missionaries from Africa into it, and they've loved it. So, missionaries are great, but here's the deal. God gave them the ability to go do that, and somebody's got to fund them, and God gave me the ability to make the money to fund them, to buy the house that they live in. And that's why it works, because there's two pieces to it. There's the missionary who's called to go do that, to volunteer their time and to make no money and not have a job. And then God calls somebody else to go support them. And you see that throughout the Bible. I mean, Paul was a great example of a missionary who, didn't work and, got support from the church. And I just know that with my skills and just with what God's called me to do, it's, I've been on mission trips. I've built houses in Mexico and I've done that, but it's I'm definitely not called to be a full-time missionary, at least this point in my life. I think it'd kind of be a waste of the platform God's given me and the abilities God's given me. I think the platform that he's given me is to do messages like this podcast right now. And on top of that, to support other missionaries and other people and churches and things that he's given me with wealth. So the point of all that is that just because you see, say, a pastor do one thing or somebody else do another, it doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. God said that we are all different parts of the body. This part has a different purpose than this part, but they all need to be, working together to succeed. And so, just understand what's your role in all of this? What are you really called to do? So that's kind of how I see it. And even when you think about the church as a whole, as an organization, it's somebody's got to, fund the church. Somebody's got to, pay the bills. Okay. Who's that coming from? It's going to be coming from a big donor. Somebody's got to run the church offices. Somebody's got to do the admin side of things and be the assistant and all this stuff. The church as a big level cannot function without these administrative type people. Doesn't make them any less valuable than even the pastor or, the person who's teaching Sunday school. every part is super valuable so that the church as a whole succeeds. So you just got to figure out what your role is. And, you know, I think to circle it back to the top, like at the end of the day, I know that there are going to be people who still listen to this or watch me and never hear this, who say, man, like that guy is not living a Christian lifestyle. Just, you know, he should not be buying all that stuff or talking about money or all this. Like, number one, well, talking about money is totally fine. That's why the Bible talks about it more than anything. But, you know, lifestyle-wise, it may be justified. And it's something that is, I just, every day in life, continue to figure out, like, what do I feel the Spirit calling me to do? Like, what's right, what's wrong? And that's kind of, you know, where things stand. And at the end of the day, like I said, if God called me to sell everything, I'd have no problem doing it. If he called me to go on missions today, even though I haven't felt that calling, if I felt strong enough and the conviction was there, I would do it. You know, I just haven't felt that. But, you know, just do what you feel God calling you to do. And I think that's the best step. And, you know, like I said before, I know this is from the Christian perspective, but even if you're not a Christian, I think a lot of these principles can still apply to you on, you know, how you live your life and the things that you should think about, and how you spend your money. You know, at the end of the day, it's good to live below your lifestyle so you don't have to constantly work. So you can give to others. So you can, you know, do all the stuff that money allows you to do if you use it the right way. So, yeah.
Thanks for making it to the end. The good news is I've got another one that I know you're gonna like, and all you gotta do is click it right here. Linking it right here. All you gotta do is just click it, and you're gonna see this new episode that you're gonna love. All the businesses I've built to this point where I don't have to put in a ton of work make me more money than any amount of crypto, more than any e-com store, more than any real estate I own. It's not even close. Now, it didn't happen overnight. I had to build the systems, I had to build the brands, I had to hire all the people that make it passive for me. And I've realized over the years that nothing will ever touch building a good business.